Hello world, Great Giza Pyramid. Today I'm going to go over some of the theory behind what I think is making the Great Giza Pyramid function. So let's start mentally imaging 3 identical pyramids anywhere, structures, I don't care what they are. They could be, whatever they are. The ambient static electricity on the top of each of these structures would be pretty much congruent, the same, similar, because they're pretty much the same. Any static electricity would ground to earth or vent off into the ether. Well, let's take one of these structures, say the Great Giza Pyramid. Let's focus on one of the other ones first. This one here, and let's go ahead and make the top of it smooth, and then have it have smaller steps that get to bigger steps, that get to bigger steps, that get to bigger steps, and then large ones at the bottom. There's a more unique pattern to that, but when you look at it, that's pretty much it. This one, they've got some large ones at the bottom, and they got some small ones, and then they've got a series of large ones. They got one really big one. That's the 35th step. That's the really important one, and then a bunch of small ones. Now this one doesn't get smaller but larger. This one actually, if you go to surface.greatgizapyramid.com or surface.giza.ws, it has a sweeping pattern to it. Now the 35th level is the largest one, and right above that, right about here, is another one. That's the third largest, the third largest. And at the halfway mark, it has the second largest above this. So I guess counting these ones, which I'm going to tell you are not relevant to the outside of the structure when you look into what's functioning on here, but they are markers that indicate the levels, because this one on the Giza Plateau is actually about 15-20 feet higher in elevation, and its guts then are actually kind of below level, below ground. So it's kind of like that, actually more like that. Okay, and then this one is actually at a higher elevation, and its guts are completely below ground, the way they've got the whole section in there. And it's got second level down there. Okay? But we get more into that when I go into the function. Right now we're going over the exterior. But these waves, this one, and this pyramid, aside from having larger steps up into the same elevation as that third largest above, counting this as the largest, that would be third largest, and this would be extra large, because these ones are actually larger, but they're at ground level and are going to be not in the symmetry. From here, it is nice and even the whole way to the top and the whole way to the bottom. But this one, the third pyramid on the plateau, is actually truncated to half height. It is, I believe, 215 feet tall, where this one from ground level is 450 feet tall, and this one is 471 feet tall, if I got my numbers right, and it has a little ground on it that actually separates. And if you look here, the division is actually on an angle, and it's across there, and there's another wave of it there, where it goes from a larger step to a smaller step. This one is quite obvious. I have videos of that on my YouTubes, and you can use there's like airpano.com or panoair.com, whatever it is. They have a couple of drone things, they've gone over it. There are helicopters, lots of photos. You can look at this. Call my bluff, please. Call my bluff. Send me a picture that disputes what I'm telling you, because I'm not trying to make anything up. This one comes back down. It has an internal piece, which is, I say this is the halfway mark. So if that's the halfway mark, that's where the 2 conduits come in, and the whole king's chamber bit, blah blah blah, inside of there. It almost looks too, this size-wise, this comes down here, because this 35th level, that is the elevation of the Queen's chamber area there. So put the King's chamber, we're about here. Where is it? This being what you would consider ground level in this particular case. Ground level here is right about there. This is not to scale, obviously, because it's not fitting right, but this is more squished down. You can get pictures of it. I'm just really going over the exterior, the theory is what I'm getting at. Any ambient static that would fall onto this particular structure, the way it is designed, it is brought up the structure and coaxed off up into it. It is not actually allowed to ground to earth. This structure does not allow grounding to earth. This is just an antenna sticking up into the air. Okay, up into the air. This particular one is also stunted from grounding earth, right there, at the 35th level, which goes around the entire circumference of the structure, and is given a little bit of a leeway off to the north side, where you can see the top rock garden. I don't want to use any pictures because I want to stay away from royalties. How it comes across and kind of jarts out a little bit, and then it's got the upper raised area that comes over, and the one rock that's purple. We go over that in other videos, and then the pond area. The pond area, I refer to that as, because when you look at the rocks, the divisions in the rocks that come across, and this pond area is actually cut into some of the rock divisions. That is a planned thing, so no one can try to talk me into thinking there was some huge, by the way, this is what, 11.7 meters, was it 38 feet by 38 feet? No one can tell me there was a huge golden capstone on this thing. Not going to happen. That would be a huge golden capstone. So this one, yeah, maybe you can talk me into it, because it's actually would be fine, because it's designed event. But I think when you actually look at the true configuration and you look at the top of it there, it is designed with that pattern. And it is designed with that pattern to have a control for exactly what vents and at what frequency or what voltage, amperage, whatever, to jump the spark gap. The same way this has designed, and this has a larger gap. Everything is designed intentionally. Now, if this is 1 unit, then these down here are like 4/5 units. This here, the ones around the circumference of this particular structure, these are actually like 7/10. They're larger than this, but not larger than that. I think the reason is because this whole thing is in a bath, actually 3 separate baths, all shorted together through the conduits that litter the Great Giza Pyramid, directly to the it would be the east side of the pyramid, where there's that pit that has the division in it. That is the control that maintains the levels in all of these structures, and which one gives pressure to which structure. And that goes more when I get into the functionality of it, but the spillway would actually spill out over that black rock that has the magnetic dampening properties to it. Yeah, that works kind of like a Faraday ring around your electrical cord. There's things you put on there to keep from getting a static buzz. Yeah, we didn't understand this stuff until we really got into playing with static electricity and microphones and things of that nature, where these things come into relevancy. But now that we understand it, we can look back upon it and understand what the 3 rings going down that conduit are. Same thing. It's dampening to keep the system within the structure from getting feedback or frequencies from the system outside the structure. But I go into more of that when I talk about some of my other videos. Anyway, this particular structure with its waves is pushing the static electricity up into a ball up there, where it's coaxed down through the system, and using the pools and using static electricity, they are manipulating the energies between this buildup of static electricity this venting or shorting to the higher frequencies up here of static electricity, and this, which is the ambient and simulated ground. Because the true ground, the true Earth, is what they like to call Osiris's well, which is at a lower elevation because it's down in the plane. This whole thing is kind of comes up, it kind of makes like a big horseshoe. The Sphinxy guy is down here at a lower elevation, even. And Osiris's shaft, it goes so deep that current day it is still below the water table and actually has water in it. I believe the water table was actually at a higher elevation at the time this was functioning, because I do believe the Nile River was the source of the water that fed this particular thing. It might have only been when it floods. It may have been that the Nile River was a nice hefty running river the whole time. But the Nile River, if we didn't have the Aswan Dam, we didn't have the other tributary dams, would flood right up to the base of the Sphinx. And your water level would come, well, if this is the Sphinx in elevation, the Sphinx is actually like here in elevation because it's lower down the plane, but this is actually all subdermal, under the earth, subterra, underground. And this would be the main spill out to the everything. It was all flowing water, all shorted together, all manipulating the difference between the static electricity and letting water either condensate, collect, or do other things. This is really unique because this particular structure has its water elevation. There's one conduit that comes off to, again, the east side where there's that whole blocked in area, and there's one to the south, but to the east it has a blocked in area with one little vent. That vent would be just below water level and would keep whatever they were collecting within here, within the structure. And then the pressures within the rest of the structure maintained whatever it is that was being collected. Kind of like a big distillery, still working on what the end product is. Maybe a particular, I wouldn't say element because I don't call like heavy hydrogen, a new element. It's a derivative of a known element. But maybe something new and unique. Don't know. Haven't gotten there yet. I'd like to turn it on and kind of see what it does, but that's the energies behind what makes the system flow. And I'm not going to go into details on exactly what's going on here. However, we didn't know that H2O was hydrogen and oxygen up until like this last half century, which now it's pounded into advertising and stuff. So it's kind of like, not even guesswork. But I can understand how people a century, 2 centuries, 3 centuries ago came up with weird and funny stories about these structures because they didn't have the knowledge to understand what was happening when they looked at it. Like the Baghdad battery. People looked at it and looked at it and looked at it and thought it was a funky vase until we understood what a battery was and how it works. And then we said, oh my God, it's been a battery in front of us this whole time. Something to think about. Have a nice day. More videos